evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting of November 14th, 2016. Mrs. Bonifield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers? Here. Mrs. Jarvis?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Laura?
Here.
Mrs. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Bonifield is here. President Burton?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mrs. Bonifield, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Gladly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to what is one of our most exciting board meetings of the year, and that is one where we honor our Teachers of the Year. Livonia Public Schools has around 1,000 teachers. We've got phenomenal folks on our staff, and the folks that you're going to see tonight are exemplary of some of the best of the best. So we are very, very excited to have you with us this evening. If you are following along either in the audience this evening or at home, you are welcome to follow along with one of our agendas. If you are present in the room this evening, the agendas can be found on the table just outside the door. If you're following along from home, you can pull one of our agendas up online, and that can be found on our website at www.livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the board tab, you can drop right down to agendas and follow along with us this evening. This evening's meeting is one that we refer to as a general meeting or a voting meeting. What that means is that the items that are coming before the board this evening have been discussed typically at least two other meetings, at a study session and now we're live. Excuse me. At a study session and at a committee of the whole meeting. Therefore, the items that we're going to be voting on this evening, you may or may not see the level of discussion that you would expect before we vote on some significant issues. Please know that that is not because we're taking these items lightly, but rather it's because we have studied these issues in some great depth, at least two meetings prior to this. And once we've talked it out, as they say, we bring them to this meeting for a vote. We will have some discussion, but it will be to a lesser degree than we would have it at our committee of the whole meetings. If you are looking for more discussion and more back and forth and more sharing of ideas and details from the board and the administration on issues, I really do encourage you to tune into our committee of the whole meetings. Those can be found on our website. They are usually 1 week prior to a voting meeting. But that is where we really flesh out a lot of ideas, thoughts, questions, back and forth. We may ask the administration for more information. And once we have just about everything we can think of answered, we send it up to a voting meeting such as tonight. So if you're interested in more detail, I really do encourage you to tune into the committee of the whole meetings. What we're going to start with this evening, next on our agenda, is our communications. If you are going to be here for a little bit later in the evening, just to let you know, we are going to do what is customary to this board, which is after our communications, when we have a time to honor some special folks, we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute recess so that we can congratulate those in our audience who are here receiving honors this evening. That recess is going to come after item 3B. So we're going to have our Teacher of the Year presentation and our American Education Week resolution. At that time, we will take about a 5 to 10 minute break in our meeting. Right now, we're going to go ahead on with item 3A, communications, and it's the 2016-2017 Teachers of the Year, Don Stromberg from Grant and Kennedy, Art Colling from Emerson, and Amy Van Horn-Gobble from Stevenson. Mrs. Jenkins, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, President Burton, members of the board, Superintendent Oquist.
You know, Mrs. Jenkins, I'm sorry, I failed to ask for a motion first. Can I jump in there and get that taken care of first? Thank you. May I have a motion for this item, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
I would be very privileged to make this motion. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt resolutions for the 2016-2017 Teachers of the Year. Don Stromberg, Grant and Kennedy Elementary Schools, Art Colling, Emerson Middle School, and Amy Van Horn-Gobble, Stevenson High School.
Support. Everybody.
There's usually a chorus of support for something like this. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Laura and many others. Now I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening once again, and as you can see from our large crowd on hand tonight, this is a very special evening for Livonia Public Schools. Tonight we are tuning out the national politics and the hectic pace that we find ourselves in our everyday lives, to pause, to kind of get back to basics a little bit by honoring 3 of Livonia Public Schools educators as our 2016-2017 Teachers of the Year. This 33-year tradition in our district is carried on tonight by a specific and thorough process. To be selected as a Teacher of the Year in the district with nearly 1,000 teachers, as you had mentioned earlier, and more than 14,000 students is quite an honor. Our 13-member Teachers of the Year committee review the nominations, which come in from all around our district. The nominees then submit their informational packets, and references are collected for each nominee. The selection process is often difficult because there are far more excellent teachers in our district than we are able to honor in a single year. But the list of former Teachers of the Year continues to grow each year, which is so neat. At this time, speaking of former Teachers of the Year, we do have quite a contingent joining us this evening. If I could ask any former Teachers of the Year in the audience to please stand and be recognized. So neat. That says so much that they care enough to come back for our program. And now on to our current nominees. I'll ask all 3 to join me at the podium. And I would say drum roll, please, but you already revealed their names with the motion. So if we could have Elementary Teacher of the Year, Don Stromberg, Middle School Teacher of the Year, Mr. Art Colling, and High School Teacher of the Year, Amy Van Horn-Gabel. Welcome. Congratulations. With this honor comes quite a bit of celebrity, as you know. As LPS Teachers of the Year, they will be recognized on the district's website, in the district's dialogue newsletter, and in the local media, by the Livonia Chamber of Commerce at its annual Leadership and Awards ceremony. I'll fill you in on that later. I'm your agent. And also by the Livonia PTSA Council during its annual Founders Day dinner. Okay, and tonight they're being recognized by some of our local elected officials as well. We have some special tributes here from the state of Michigan and from Wayne County. And we do have in attendance Wayne County Commissioner Terry Marecki in the audience. Terry, thank you for being here tonight. Our other elected officials were unable to join us this year for our presentation. But I'm going to load your arms up with these tributes, okay? We've got from Wayne County, and this is signed by Terry Marecki, Glenn Anderson, and Diane Webb, the 3 Wayne County Commissioners representing our school district. This one's for Amy. Mr. Stromberg. And then we have a very special tribute from the state of Michigan. These are very long. I'm going to choose not to read through them all, if that's okay. These are signed by Governor Rick Snyder, State Representative Laura Cox, and State Senator Patrick Colbeck. This one's for Amy. Mr. Dowling, you're welcome. Something to hang on your walls. Okay, now it is my turn to shower them with some gifts as our Teachers of the Year. First of all, their names are engraved on a plaque. Good idea. Because I have more. Their names are engraved on our annual plaque that is displayed in the lobby of the board office. I forgot to point that out to you guys, so make sure you check it out. You saw it? Okay. Very well. And then, let's see, we've got these very cool, I'm not going to open them, but they're engraved golden apple plaques. So here's one for you. It is heavy. You're welcome. And finally, we've assembled some very cool gift bags. And every year, we send out requests to local businesses in Livonia, and they so generously contribute to these gifts. In our gift bags, we have from Wayne County Commissioner's Office, Terry Marecki's office, some Detroit Tiger game tickets, which is very
Nice.
cool.
Let's make it easy.
Okay, the list is kind of long here. Luigi's, gift cards to Luigi's in Livonia on Plymouth Road, Luigi's Italian Restaurant. A gift card to Las Palapas in Livonia, also on Plymouth Road. The gift card to the Wine Palace. Oh, on the Wine Palace? Also a gift card to Cardwell Florist, Jimmy John's, Barnes & Noble, Dave & Buster's Power Cards, and these beautiful floral bouquets from our neighbors next door at French's Florist.
Oh, wow. Nice. Very nice.
Oh, what a haul.
Wow.
Yes.
Prior to our presentation this evening, we did hold a reception in the board office upstairs. And I'd like to thank Big B Coffee on 7 Mile for donating the coffee for our reception. Now I'm going to ask Mr. Stromberg to stay here with me, and you two may be seated, and I'll call you up in a few minutes, okay? All right, hello.
Hi.
So we'll start with Mr. Stromberg, and I have to call him Mr. Stromberg because both of my children had him as a music teacher in elementary school, so kind of cool. Mr. Stromberg teaches music at Grant Elementary and Kennedy Elementary. And at this time, I'd like to invite Trustee Eileen McDonald to join us at the podium to read through a special resolution for the Board of Education to consider for adoption.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Such an honor for you.
Thank you.
Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Donald Stromberg, a music teacher at Grant Elementary and Kennedy Elementary, and a 10-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished himself by being named Elementary Teacher of the Year for 2016-17 by a district-wide committee of teachers, parents, and administrators. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that he's an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of his duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Don believes in igniting passion for music, community, and learning through musical education, always engaging his students, serving as a role model, and inspiring cooperation. Now therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of Livonia of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Donald Stromberg for being named Elementary Teacher of the Year 2016-17 for his dedication and loyal service as he has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, his students, and community.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Stromberg was nominated last year by more than 50 Grant Elementary parents, and he was nominated again this year for this year's program by another Grant parent, Matt Deloria, who describes him as passionately humorous, gentle, demanding, compassionate, musical, and loving. He goes on to say that it's more than just music. He teaches character. As a fellow music teacher, I see excellence in Mr. Stromberg. Don Stromberg began his teaching career 32 years ago and has spent the past decade with us here in LPS. Actually, he spent much longer than a decade with us here in LPS because he's a product of LPS. Where did you graduate?
Bentley.
Bentley? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Go Bulldogs. Few of us.
There aren't that many of us left now.
There's a few. Yeah.
Yes, there are.
There's a few.
He's not only a talented music teacher, he's a music scholar, having earned a voice performance degree from the University of Michigan and a master's in conducting from the Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey. He went on to earn his teaching certificate at Oakland University and taught music in Ann Arbor and at Schoolcraft College. He is also the music director at Grace United Methodist Church in New Baltimore. His teaching philosophy centers around creating a healthy learning environment for our young students. He teaches songs with significant meaning, songs that his students can be found singing outside while playing, and I can attest to that. Songs that involve games and dance, and songs that make our kids stronger. Each school year, he teaches a couple of songs to the entire school. This, he finds, helps build community and bridges between the different grade levels within the school. He reinforces the leader in me 7 habits through song as well. Probably one of the more popular features in Mr. Stromberg's class are the Tubano drums, of course, which he purchased through grants received by the LPS Education Foundation. These drums are all the rage at Kennedy and Grant Elementary, as you can imagine. Without even realizing it, the students are honing their listening skills, sharpening their cooperation, and becoming a community of music makers while engaged in a drum circle. Mr. Stromberg has shared his amazing site has shared this amazing site of the kids drumming in drum circle at community events, including the Barnes & Noble Book Fair nights and at the Livonia Civic Library during the LPS Student Art Gallery grand opening. He is described by Kennedy's principal, Dr. Danielle Daniels, as magical, both inside and outside of the classroom. She says he brings joy and happiness wherever he goes. He conducts inspirational music concerts for every grade level at both of his schools, and that's 10 spring concerts every year you do, right? Always to a packed house of appreciative parents. Dr. Daniels goes on to say, Mr. Stromberg is called to be a teacher. He fits so perfectly in an elementary school that I believe his destiny was to teach. His talent is sufficient to take him to Carnegie Hall or to lead the New York Symphony, but he has accepted the call and daily makes beautiful music with Kennedy's 350 musicians and Grant's nearly 500 musicians. And that's end quote. I'll wrap up by sharing a sentiment that was offered by colleague Kim Schlock.
Mhm.
Is that how you say it? She spelled out his name with the attributes as she sees in Mr. Stromberg. So here it goes. So she spells out Don Stromberg as D for dynamic, dedicated, and diligent. O for outstanding and outgoing. N, never down. S, synergizing, snazzy, and soulful. T for talented. R for respected and resilient. O, one of a kind. M, marvelous mentor. B, brilliant. E, encouraging. R, resourceful. And G, giving. And with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Stromberg to say a few words. Now it can be your turn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to say just I have a really good job, as you can imagine. There's lots of joys in my job, and I thought one of the joys I have is I hear new jokes from the little children, the little students. And so my favorite one from Halloween, can I tell a couple jokes? Yeah. Is how do you fix a broken jack-o'-lantern? With a pumpkin patch. Good, right? And then maybe one that you could share at Thanksgiving was the turkey goes into the library and sees the librarian, and what did the turkey say to the librarian? Book, 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 book. Great job. I know. You're going to say it, right? Yeah. I think of, I kind of get ready for my day in the morning when I'm making my coffee, and I'm I'm fixing perhaps a piece of toast. And I, like a lot of people, I have a nice toaster, and I get my bread and I put it in the toaster, and I put it down, and I push toast on it because it has the bagel button, you know, so I push the toast. And then I go and I do a thing or two, and then I come back because I think it should have popped up, I'm thinking to myself. And I go back, and the bread is still in the toaster. It's down. I forgot to what?
Plug it in.
Plug it in. This seems to be my day. That, you know, in teaching, we offer these students a nice toaster. We even get good bread. You know, you understand what I'm saying? We show them how to put it in the toaster. We give them directions. We demonstrate. Here's how you put your bread in the toaster. You put it down. Nothing's going to happen unless they plug in their toaster. So I spend my day trying to figure out how to get these children to plug in their toasters. That's the joy of it. I have been really fortunate and blessed to have a lot of people in my life help me keep my toaster plugged in and how to help others find ways to plug in their toaster so they can get their bread toasted. I think of my first music teacher here at Livonia, Mrs. Campbell, who taught me respect and kindness. I think of Mrs. Hutchison, who's in the house tonight, who taught me about hard work and believing that I could do things I had no idea I could do. I think of Jerry Smith, Dr. Smith, who I sang with, who taught me intensity and the power of music and that feeling when he's conducting 500 people that he's looking at me and that I can't scratch my nose because he's looking at me at that moment. How is that possible? He's in front of 500 people. A great musician and making music of this level. A teacher in graduate school who we would conduct for periodically and teach with, and he'd say, I don't know what you're doing. I don't believe you. Sit down. And we'd say, well, what are you, as I don't see it. What are you doing? I don't feel the passion in what you're doing. Come back and do it again when we can feel and see what you're doing. Taught me to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. He pushed into the areas of unknown. Spend your day uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable. Get in the unknown. That unknown becomes a known. You sit in knowns for a couple seconds, and then you push on into the new unknown. Taught me that that's a beautiful place to be, and I'm so grateful to be part of that process. Thank you all for the opportunity to teach here with these kids. Thank you to you guys. Thank you to my colleagues and friends that are here tonight, to the PTA that have supported me for years here in Livonia, my family, Eric, Principal Eric's in the house. I love you, brother. Susie, my kindergarten consultant, and my sister-in-law, and Kate, and Annie, and Chris, and Dwayne, and Miss Hutchison. I met Mama Stromberg's in the house. There's my mama, right? It's often said by coaches that players are acknowledged by their accomplishment. The players are acknowledged by their accomplishment, and coaches are recognized because of their team's accomplishments. My team is a bunch of little children that are terrific, and I'm so proud of them. And so I say thank you to all the young children of Livonia and the areas around Livonia and their families. Because of them, someone seems to think I know what I'm doing. Thank you very much.
Okay, next I'd like to introduce you to another highly skilled veteran teacher in our district, Mr. Art Colling. Mr. Colling teaches math at Emerson Middle School and also serves as the school's athletic director. He's also a Camp Emerson teacher leader and the go-to guy for all things techie, from what I hear. At this time, I'd like to invite Board Secretary Tammy Bonifield to the podium, and Tammy will read through our board resolution for you.
Whereas the trustee of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district. And whereas Arthur Colling III, a mathematics teacher at Emerson Middle School and a 16-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished himself by being named Middle School Teacher of the Year for 2016-2017 by a district-wide committee of teachers, parents, and administrators. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that he is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of his duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Art believes in inspiring his students to do their very best despite challenges by lifting their confidence and guiding them through lessons as a teacher, mentor, and a positive role model. Now therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Arthur Colling III for being named Middle School Teacher of the Year for 2016-2017 and for the dedication and loyal service he has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, his students, and the community. Congratulations very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Benefield. Art Colling has been teaching in Livonia Public Schools for 16 years, as was mentioned in the resolution, after receiving his teaching degree from Eastern Michigan University. He went on to earn a master's degree from the University of Phoenix and has been teaching at Emerson for the past 10 years. I love Mr. Colling's story because it's one of perseverance and one that depicts that village we all know it takes for a child to succeed. In his narrative, Mr. Colling admits that he almost didn't follow through with the process of being considered for Teacher of the Year. I had to talk him into it. No, just kidding. That's because he says he is a product of many people who have supported him throughout the years, so that he may be the most effective educator for his students. As a student himself, he knew he could have done better in school. The slip-ups along the way proved to be beneficial to him as a teacher later in life. When Emerson began to implement the Leader in Me program, Art realized that he was not just teaching math, he was teaching and guiding the whole student. He found that he was growing personally as well, from the tenets of Leader in Me, growing as well from the tenets of Leader in Me. He said he took a risk and decided to try coaching volleyball a few years ago. He had never coached a sport before. Soon he found himself coaching volleyball, basketball, track, and cross country. He said focusing on the 7 habits of the Leader in Me program helped him succeed in these endeavors. He currently serves as athletic director, overseeing Emerson sports programs. Mr. Colling's perseverance likely comes from watching his father, who is also with us tonight. Welcome. Who worked full-time at GM while taking classes to receive his high school diploma. During this process, his father had some health setbacks, but eventually did receive his Bentley High School diploma in June of 2000. Art said in his narrative, "He taught me a lot about perseverance, learning from your mistakes and the importance of a good education. These are life lessons I try to teach my students when they face academic and personal obstacles." Art has taken this inspiration directly to his classroom, constantly working to improve his instructional delivery methods and implementing creative ways to reach all students' needs. Principal Ann Owen said Art Colling is always willing to step up, no matter the challenge. She mentions his ability to mentor students who are struggling academically, struggling socially, emotionally, or even physically. She said, quote, "The proof of the tight relationships he has formed is the communication he routinely receives from these students as they progress through high school and beyond. Many still call, visit, or email seeking his counsel." Assistant Principal Matt Moll concurred that Art's most valuable attribute is his relationship with his students at Emerson, noting that he will often come in early or stay late after school to help a student who needs a little bit of extra help. Mr. Moll describes Mr. Colling as a team player, creative lesson planner, and someone who never hesitates to offer a helping hand to his students or his colleagues. Former Teacher of the Year Eric Cassie said he admires Mr. Colling that Mr. Cowling does not allow obstacles to get in the way of student success. He said, quote, "As a current principal, I would jump at the opportunity to have someone with the knowledge base, caring nature, willingness to take risks, and integrity in my building. Educators like Mr. Cowling are a rare breed." And with that, let's hear a word or two from Mr. Cowling himself.
It's a little bit overwhelming. I'm just really thankful my suit fits. First time I put it on in about a year. Thank you, board, Superintendent Oquist, cabinet. It's really nice to be here. I remember the last time I was here for Teacher of the Year was Eric Cassie. So unfortunately, he just called me and could not make it tonight. He's stuck out in Gibraltar, still doing his job. I am a product of Livonia Public Schools. I graduated Franklin in 1992. I went to Cleveland Elementary, Emerson as well. So it's kind of nice to be back home there. It was nice to see one of my former teachers from second grade. I don't think he's still here. John Colby was just here.
Oh, yeah.
And my second grade teacher, so it was really nice to see him. I know Mr. Durrett couldn't show up. A lot of teachers through Livonia, Mrs. C., Mr. Mihawk, Mr. Lopez, Mr. Rusas, all of them. I was never a popular student in school. And they taught me that I can be accepted into the classroom. And it was really, I felt part of the community in the classroom. And that's what I kind of strive to do with my students. The one professor I had at Eastern Michigan, I was a music student too. I started music program at Eastern Michigan, and I was actually surprised they accepted me because of my poor work ethic in high school, and they gave me a chance, which was nice. Dr. Whitney Prince was my percussion instructor, and I still remember to this day, and he's the one that really kind of changed my focus on what a good student is. Walk up into his lesson, not prepared at all. 5 minutes into it, he says, "Leave." I was just shocked. It was like my father saying he was disappointed in me. And from that point on, I made sure I was practicing like I should. Finally doing my homework in college, realizing, wow, you're paying for this, you might as well get something out of it. But it took that to really just understand the importance of a good education. After I graduated college, I had the opportunity to student teach with Bill Leitz. And it was really nice. I really was never in front of a classroom before. And he showed me just how important it was to get those personal relationships. And it's not always about a test score, a standardized test. It's about building those relationships, building their confidence. So when they do take the test, they will succeed. And that's what I was trying to do with my students for the past 16 years. I have, where does she go? Mrs. Joy Rose there. When I was subbing, walking into her classroom the last day of school, I never forget it. I was expecting a third grade room, just all out, just chaos. Not hers on that last day of school, and she taught me so much about classroom management. Again, personal relationships, and it's just a joy to have her here as a personal friend now, so thank you. Then I made my way over to Roosevelt, and Sheila Alice hired me, which I'm thankful for now. I still remember sitting there. Here's Melissa Meister to my right, or to my left, Sheila to the right, and I've never had tougher interview questions in my life. Wow. I have a person from Roosevelt, Amy Trushon, who's also a Teacher of the Year, who helped me. It was nice to have just a nice amount of friends to come back and visit and share in this experience with me. I have more colleagues out there. Jan Leach, who's my co-teacher for the past 2 years, another Teacher of the Year. We keep bouncing off ideas off each other, so thank you. One of the most important people that I really want to appreciate right now is Miss Ann Owen. She took a risk asking me to do certain jobs. I still remember I was just teaching math, I think, my second or third year, and she looks at me, "What do you want to teach?" And I'm sitting there going, "Please don't say science. Please don't say science."
Yeah.
And it was success strategies. And I gained so much experience in just those 3 years working with those students that it's really developed my whole personality as a teacher. My family's here, my father, mother, my sister Tracy. Thank my mom for waking me up every morning to make sure I get to school. Number one, I was downstairs, she'll throw a shoe down and it hit me or something. We got to school, right? Like we said in the presentation, my dad was a big influence on me, still is. He dropped out of 10th grade. Back then, of course, you can just get a job. And he had no reason to get his high school diploma at all. Not one. He was retiring 2 years later. It was for himself. And that whole time he was going to school, I wanted to quit college. And I kept thinking, wow, Dad's working 12 hours a day, going to school for 4 hours a day. I can't quit. It would look pathetic on me. And I kept going, I kept getting, so thank you. My wife's here. We already talked about the wine palace. So that's what she's here for. She wanted that card. No. But I just want to thank her. You know, all those long days. She, when we got married, she didn't realize what teaching is involved. I mean, it is a all day, every day, 24/7. You don't stop thinking about teaching. And she is one thing she's upset about is the vacations I get. Is that we can only go to Disney in the summertime when it's 95 plus. She hates those. But, you know, it's nice to have her by my side. I mean, I've always said if somebody could stick with me, then she's a keeper. I have my kids here as well, Addie and William over here. The past 7 years with them, I've grown so much, again, as an educator because of them. You know, it's really hard to see how they grow up and your patience and everything. But when you do have a rough day, coming home to two smiling faces, just everything goes away. So that was really nice. I know there's a lot of people I probably forgot to mention, but I know one, Liz Allison back there. She was hoping I'd probably forget. I had the pleasure of teaching with Liz at Roosevelt for a little bit, and then she made her way over to Emerson with us. And I always said that she makes Teachers of the Year. Amy Truchon she taught with for many years, me, and whoever she's going to help. I mean, she is probably the hardest worker in this district, so thank you. But last but not least, the students. I obviously wouldn't be here without them. They make the job enjoyable. I always said my friends, they just go to work, they come home. I enjoy going to work. I like being there. You know, I took risks like coaching. Never coached a day in my life. I was a music student. I was in marching band. Never coached a day in my life, and I absolutely loved it. And now I'm the athletic director, so that came out of nowhere. But again, I love seeing what the students can do. It's so much fun watching them just grow, seeing them after high school, graduating. Some, you know, I remember Dakota Bellinier just 2 weeks ago. So excited she got accepted to CMU. And seeing how happy they are after they leave my class is just a big joy. So again, thank you so much for this honor.
Okay, last but certainly not least, I'd like to tell you all about Mrs. Amy Van Horn-Gobel. Amy, if you can join me at the podium. It's your turn. And also I'd like to invite Board President Colleen Burton to the podium with the resolution.
I was thrilled. We generally rotate the honor of reading resolutions to those who are being honored on given evenings, and I jumped at the chance to do this for Amy. My daughter had the privilege of being in Amy's class, and I just where'd you go? There you go. Okay. And I just told Amy it was when we were upstairs at the reception what Jenna learned coming into your class as a freshman, and she learned so much in terms of writing skills that she's using in college that other kids are struggling with, that I consistently hear kids who have gone through your class that just have those skills and they're ready for college, they're ready for the next step. That and being confident to speak publicly, which most ninth grade girls would loathe, and she loathed it. But you taught her how to do that very, very well. So amongst all the other curriculum, those are life skills that kids in your class, and Jenna is far from alone. I hear it consistently from other parents whose kids have gone through your class. Those are life skills that will set those kids far and apart, and I so appreciate, from my own perspective and from the parents of the other kids, what you give to them. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Amy Van Horn-Gobel, an English language arts and global education teacher at Stevenson High School and an 18-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named High School Teacher of the Year for 2016-2017 by a district-wide committee of teachers, parents, and administrators. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Amy believes bringing the curriculum to life for her students, whether through creative games, high-tech Skyping, incorporating a world view of the material through languages, or even organizing travel abroad to inspire her students. Now therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Amy Van Horn Gobble for being named High School Teacher of the Year for 2016-2017 and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and to the community. Congratulations.
Join me, will you? Okay, thank you, President Burton. Now it's my turn to say a bit more about Amy and her career as a high school English teacher. She teaches English language arts and global education in the School of Global Ed, it's called, right, at Stevenson. She's known for her creativity and interactive class, and as being a leader of dozens of adventures all over the globe. I had to check her schedule, her calendar, before we made this evening because I wasn't sure if she would be in the country. No, just kidding. Amy is described by nominator and former Teacher of the Year and retired colleague, Kathy Ladd, as being a tireless and committed instructor, a fine academic, a lifelong learner, and a genuine professional who is never arrogant or self-promoting. She is really an unsung hero at Stevenson and is truly interested in all things educational. Amy graduated summa cum laude from Eastern Michigan University and earned her master's degree from the University of Michigan Dearborn. She was involved in the Eastern Michigan University's writing project and has taken continuing education courses in world languages, including Italian, Mandarin, Chinese, and French. She was selected in 2014 by the U.S. State Department to participate in the Teachers for Global Classrooms program, which took her to Washington, D.C. for a special program there and all the way to Morocco, where she was able to teach and learn alongside a native Moroccan teacher. Closer to home, she's been teaching at Stevenson High School's Global Ed students, her Global Ed students in the areas of research writing, world literature and history, American literature and history. She excels in coordinating activities that bring the curriculum to life as she enjoys collaborating with her colleagues. Amy is a teacher who has contributed so much to Stevenson, whether it be editing the Spectrum Literary Arts magazine, serving as the School of Global Education's travel director, producing Stevenson's Pantomime show, or serving as a chaperone or a curriculum committee member. Amy has been a vital part of Stevenson for 18 years. Stevenson Principal Gary Harper describes Mrs. Van Horn Gobble as a true professional at her job and in her life. Mr. Harper is impressed by her organizational skills that have taken students and staff on overseas trips throughout the summer months, and locally her outreach to charitable organizations is something worth noting. In the classroom, a lesson on Edgar Allan Poe isn't just another lesson. She utilizes dress and props to bring the lesson to life, dimming the lights, having a candelabra, even a large raven to create an ambiance for this, to describe the nature of this dark poet. Amy's co-teacher, Elizabeth Roberge, notes that she is a lifelong learner who believes in widening the view of the world for her students. Elizabeth notes in a reference letter that she wrote, in Amy's view, learning is constant and can occur anywhere and at all times. She said Amy epitomizes Stevenson's motto, striving for excellence, learning for life. And with that, we would love to hear from Amy. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. I could have never imagined that when I started as a student teacher at Stevenson High School in 1997, that I would stand here before you accepting this award. Thank you to the LPS community of today and of the past, board members, administrators, teachers, so many of my colleagues, past and present, parents, many of them are here as colleagues and as administrators, board members, parents and the students, of course, to the students of Livonia Public Schools. There are so many incredible individuals with whom I have had the great pleasure of working and who have helped me to become the teacher I consistently strive to be. Thank you to those of you who found me worthy enough for this honor. Thank you to my special guests of family and friends all over, supporting me tonight and supporting me always. Mr. Colling and Mr. Stromberg, thank you for all that you do, because I'm truly honored to be among the likes of you. Of course, my achievements are a reflection of the first teachers in my life, my parents. My father's intense work ethic and passion for history are with me every day, along with my mother's eagerness to learn, willingness to try new things, and all the while reminding me that I am woman, hear me roar. My sister, sometimes painful because she is the older one, okay, has also pushed me in so many ways, and I thank her. Tonight, it is for them as much as it is for me. What are the chances that at the end of my student teaching tenure in December of 1997, that the 10th grade English position as part of the School of Global Education would be posted? Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the living and breathing American dream. While I may have landed the job, and I may have been an energetic 23-year-old ready to take on the world when I started, man, did I need guidance? Did I need direction? Did I need a teacher? Thankfully, the gods granted me the wise Athena in my mentor and friend, Judy Berjeski. And then the gods granted me the warrior Athena when Libby Roberge joined the program, another to aid me in this educational quest. To our administrators, we three may be known for our great collaboration. To our students, our excitement for teaching. But really what it comes down to, we three are kindred spirits. It's really hard, this spirit of education. Sometimes we are so excited about our lessons and have such high expectations for our students that we actually frustrate them. When we challenge our students, when we have conflict with our students, as it certainly happens, it is not at all that we don't care, but rather because we do care. If I am the spark of the Global Education Department, as stated in the LPS dialogue, it is because my students ignite me. It is their spirit for learning, their energy for life that keeps all of us educators young at heart and reminding us of the difference we make. More often than not, it is the non-curriculum related issues or lessons of the classrooms that have the most impact on our student lives and on our lives, as we also heard from Mr. Colling and Mr. Stromberg in their great words. And yet I am deeply passionate about the global education curriculum. When the School of Global Education at Stevenson was founded 40 years ago, globalization was a futuristic concept. While today, it's a reality. Our students must be able to think critically, speak and write eloquently, as Mrs. Burton mentioned. They must be comfortable with peers from all walks of life. They must be able to communicate respectfully, and they must be willing to consider different perspectives. Where can I find testament of the lasting impact of such skills that they have on our students? Well, where all the answers are today, on social media. One student, currently at Ohio State, wrote me, "Just thought I would share that you and all of my past global ed teachers crossed my mind quite a bit this election season. I hope you all realize how appreciative all of us Globee alumni are for your work in turning us into educated global citizens. Thank you for teaching me to respect differences in opinion while still maintaining my own views. It has helped me quite a bit recently." I'd like to read another quick post from last week because any good Globee knows that one source or piece of evidence is hardly research. Tonight, I'm grateful for democracy, one student wrote. I'm grateful for my education, especially in the SHS Global Education Program and at the University of Michigan. I'm thankful for my critical thinking skills that helped me navigate this election. I'm thankful for my peers on both sides of the aisle who challenged my thinking and my views. Mostly, I'm thankful for Mr. Gobble and 270towin.com. You know what's so cool is that these two students did not support the same candidate. One will be rooting for Ohio State in the coming weeks, and the other will be rooting for Michigan. I am incredibly proud to be part of a legacy that shows students how to think rather than what to think. I cannot end this speech without also expressing my gratitude to Mr. Tim Gobble. We may go by different last names, but we are one in our commitment to education, dedication to the common good, and most importantly, support of one another. Thank you, my better half, for making me a better person. Thank you, everybody.
That's all I have.
That's a lot. Yeah. We are thrilled to be able to share this evening with so many of you. We have one other, a little bit shorter item. Oh, I'm sorry, we do. We have to vote on this item. Thank you, folks. Do we have questions or comments from board members?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah. All righty. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Laura. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Laura.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we have one more brief item before we will take a short recess so that those of us who are in attendance this evening can congratulate our honorees. The next item is item 3B, American Education Week, November 14th to 18th, 2016. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Centers.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District designate November 14th through 18th, 2016 as the 95th Annual Observance of American Education Week.
Support. Mrs. McDonald? We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. McDonald. And Mrs. Jenkins.
Okay, thank you, President Burton. Every year, our district, like districts across the U.S., recognizes American Education Week, which is designated this year for November 14th through the 18th. This is the 95th annual observance of American Education Week, and what an appropriate time to publicly recognize all of our teachers as we have honored our brightest and best here tonight. There is quite a bit of history behind American Education Week. Wouldn't mind, I'd like to share a couple paragraphs of note. Back in 1919, the National Education Association was distressed that 25% of the nation's World War I draftees were illiterate, and 9% were physically unfit. The NEA teamed up with the American Legion to seek ways to generate support for education. In 1921, the NEA Assembly in Des Moines, Iowa, a designation at the Assembly, a designation was created to recognize 1 week each year to spotlight education, calling for an educational week observed in all communities annually for the purpose of informing the public of the accomplishments and needs of the public schools to secure the cooperation and support of the public in meeting those needs. Before too long, the observance was co-sponsored by the U.S. Office of Education, the National PTA, the American Legion Auxiliary, and a whole host of other organizations. The tradition continues today with the resolution before you, described in detail, the rationale for commemorating American Education Week each year in our country, our state, and in Livonia Public Schools. I invite the board to read the resolution before you and to vote formally to place it on the record. And as we do so, we encourage our entire community to thank our local educators for the very important work that they do for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Centers, would you read the resolution, and then we'll ask for questions or comments from the board?
Certainly. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, students give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas public education employees work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools unite entire communities, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common purpose. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District do hereby proclaim November 14th through 18th, 2016 as the 95th annual observance of American Education Week, and urge all citizens to make a commitment to public education and to the future of our children. Be it further resolved that the trustees of the Livonia Public Schools School Board of Education take this special occasion to thank Livonia Public Schools employees, parents, and community volunteers for the work they do to educate and support the children of our school district.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we have a motion on the table by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
May I just take a point of privilege?
Yes, you can. Right ahead.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment, as has been shared here this evening, we do have almost 1,000 educators in Livonia Public Schools. We also have almost 900 additional staff that make up Livonia Public Schools. We are who we are because of our people. There is no greater work, there is no more important calling than the work those 1,900 people do each and every day. So we are so proud to honor the three of you here this evening. I'm trying to find all three of you. And you are emblematic of the 1,900 colleagues you have across this district that are so committed to our kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing them, we are going to take a 5-minute recess to acknowledge our honorees of the evening. Please feel free to do the same. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the continuation of the regular meeting of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education of November 14th, 2016. The next item that we have in our communications is written communications. Do any board members have written communications they would like to share? Seeing none, the next item is audience communications. I do not have any blue slips. Are there any members of the audience who would like to participate in audience communications this evening? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is a response to prior audience communications. I do not have any response to prior audience communications that have not already been handled. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. Item number 4. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. Item 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of October 17, 2016. Item 6A, bills for payment, November 15, 2016. Item 7A, approval of adult education program of study.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 6B, acceptance of audit report for 2015-2016. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. McDonald.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the fiscal year 2016 audit report for the 2013 building and site bond as presented by the audit firm of Yo & Yo.
Support.
If I can ask Mrs. McDonald that we add the words and site bond fund. I'm sorry, and site fund bond.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, I will do it again.
Okay.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the fiscal year 2016 audit report for the 2013 building and site fund bond as presented by the audit firm of Yo & Yo.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mrs. McDonald, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mr. Dixon, are you presenting on this evening?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
There he is. There's only one left.
Yeah. We clear it out after communications, don't we?
That's sometimes good. That was a nice presentation this evening. Tonight, we have with us Brian Dixon from Yo & Yo, and he's going to present the 2015-16 financial statements for the 2013 building and site bond and the audit compliance verification of expenditures of the capital project fund, or the sinking fund at the which was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting last week. Just as a general comment, you're required by law to have an independent audit of the bond fund and an opinion letter prepared by the auditor. We're pleased to announce that the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the respective financial position of the district of Livonia Public Schools 2013 school building and site fund as of June 30th, 2016. With respects to compliance with the capital projects fund, the sinking fund expenditures, we also received verification from Yo & Yo that the school district has complied in all material respects with the applicable provisions of Section 1212.1 of the revised school code and the State of Michigan Department of the Treasurer letter number 2004-4. So with that, we have Brian's going to do a quick presentation, and we can ask any questions you may have of him.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. Again, last week we did pass out the audit report, the sinking fund letter, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint. And I believe the PowerPoint will be presented on the screen as well. I was just going to run through that PowerPoint one more time for the public's benefit. So we did issue, on the first slide, we did issue an unmodified opinion. And again, this was only for the 2013 school building and site bonds. This was not an audit of the entire school district. That is handled by your other auditors. With that, we did issue an unmodified opinion on the bond audit. On the next slide, we have your balance sheet, which represents your assets, liabilities, and fund balance as of June 30th, 2016. At the end of the year, in assets, you did have just under $113 million, liabilities, $10.7 million, and a fund balance at the end of the year of $102 million. On the next slide, we do have a pie chart which breaks down your revenues and your other financing sources for the period of June 25th, 2013 through June 30th, 2016, so just over a 3-year period. And you will see there, majority of your proceeds do come from the proceeds from the sale of the bonds, Series 1 and Series 2. And this is, again, the full length of the bond, a total of $197 million in revenue in total on this slide. On the next slide, we have your expenditures, and this is just for the current year from July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. And you will see that those expenditures were $49.2 million, majority of which were the hard cost of 73.4%. And then we move on to the next slide. This slide is again, the full 3 years of the bond, a total of just under, or almost $7 million. And the hard cost, again, you will see is the biggest expenditures there of 65.4%. Then we take those expenditures and break them down by year. So you will see 2000 on the next slide. 2013, 2014, 15, and 16, and as I already mentioned, the $49.2 million in 2016 that we just audited this year. And on the next slide, we have your fund balance as of the end of each year, the 13, 14, 15, and 16 school years. In 2013, you did sell the first series, Series 1, started to spend those down through 2015, and then in 16, sold Series 2, which you'll continue to spend down after that point. So those are the numbers, and on the next slide, we move into your internal controls. So we looked at internal controls, again, over the bond fund only, and look, there were no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies when we looked at those internal controls. And then under compliance, under the bond audit, on the next slide, we do have no non-compliance there as well under the bond audit. And this year we did audit your sinking fund, as Mr. Dixon also mentioned, and we had no non-compliance under the sinking fund as well. And on the last slide, just thank you again very much for having me here tonight. If there's any questions, I can answer them at this point.
Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or board? Mrs. McDonald?
Thank you. This is the first year that I've seen that we've actually done the sinking fund as part of the audit. Are there requirements for that, or is that something that the school district just chose to do at this point?
I believe generally that's handled with your normal audit.
Mm-hmm.
And because of your current auditors are your project managers, therefore they thought an independent audit should be taken with that as well. So not only did we do the bond audit this year, but we also audited the sinking fund.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the superintendent or board? Mrs. Bonnefield?
I just, Mrs. Oquist or Mr. Dixon, if you can just get probably with the prior question would begs a little additional information about why we chose to separate the regular district audit, the bond audit, and the sinking fund audit, and what the purpose of that was, and that there is no conflict of interest with Plant Moran, but just to make sure that there's the utmost transparency why
Sure.
we made that choice to hire Yo-Yo to provide those services.
Absolutely. So as we shared at the committee meeting last week, it would certainly be appropriate and allowed to have Plant Moran the accounting portion of Plant Moran, complete our district's audit of any of our funds, the general fund, the bond fund, or the sinking fund. I believe this decision was made when we first entered into the bond, the 2013 bond, and sold the first series and then began to report out on that. The district felt it to be most prudent since Plant Moran Cressa, which is another arm of Plant Moran, is our owner's rep in overseeing our bond work for the district and serves as our owner's representative, that we thought it would just be an even higher level of transparency and clarity to have Yo and Yo, with whom has been a valued partner of ours in the past, has also done our general fund audit work in the past, to come in and complete the bond audit, and then again this year, as we brought Plant Moran on to assist us with some of the long-term sinking fund planning, to be able to complete the audit for the sinking fund as well. So both highly qualified firms. Brian Dixon has been a member and partner for many, many years, I think almost 20 years with Yo and Yo, and we've had a good long-term relationship with Plant Moran. Both are outstanding accounting firms, but we just feel it gives us that extra level of security and transparency for our taxpayers and for our community.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Dixon, last week there was a question raised about money coming back from other governmental agencies. And I know the board received the answer on that, but can you give that here so the public can hear it also?
Yeah, that was made up of two amounts. One was with Wayne County for $220,000, and the other one was $7,800 with the city of Livonia. Both those were deposits that were put in place and were receivables back from those other governmental units.
Okay. Deposits that money was not used in its entirety, and therefore we were entitled to be refunded.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. McDonald, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for all of your work.
Thank you.
It's very appreciated.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda this evening is item 7C, approval of bid results for the Frost Boiler Replacement Sinking Fund. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Laura.
thank you. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the lowest responsible bid for frost boilers replacement from Contrast Mechanical, Macomb Township, Michigan, for the total cost of $119,000.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Laura, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mr. Francis, I understand you're going to address this for us this evening?
Yes, good evening, board members.
Thank you.
As you know, the existing boilers at Frost are coming to the end of their life cycle, and this is a pilot program where we want to get high-efficiency boilers to replace the boilers that we currently have at Frost. Currently, we have 8 traditional boilers that have been there for some time. We're going to take 2 completely offline and replace them with 2 new high-efficiency boilers, and we'll keep the other 6 in place as a backup, but we have very high expectations that the use of the 2 new boilers, using much less energy over the next several years, we're hoping at approximately, from the report, we're figuring approximately 8 years could pay for the boilers that we're purchasing now in efficiencies and energy savings. So this pilot program would, of course, build efficiencies, and hopefully we would be finding the results that we expect and can carry through with other buildings across the district to build more efficiencies and save more energy. So the source of this would be the sinking fund, and we would recommend the purchase of the boilers for Frost.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from Superintendent or the board? All righty. And these are the types of items that I was referring to earlier, where please know that it's not that we're not asking a lot of questions on these, it's that we've asked a lot of them already and pretty much covered it in the last few weeks. Seeing no other questions or comments, we have a motion by Mrs. Laura, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 7C, approval of bid results for, 7D rather, approval of bid results for window replacement at Administration Building from the Sinking Fund. May I have a motion, please?
Sorry to correct you, President Burton, we're on 6.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It is same item, wrong number. 6D.
Okay.
Approval of bid results for window replacement at Administration Building from the Sinking Fund.
Thank you, President Burton. I would be happy to
Thank
make
you.
that motion.
Go right ahead.
For 6D, move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the lowest responsible bid for window replacement at the Administration Building from Butcher and Butcher Construction, Rochester Hills, Michigan, for a total cost of $109,300.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Francis?
Yes, thank you again. The windows in the administration building here at the board office are over 50 years old, and as we know, last year in the west wing, as we would call it, or the back building, we had some issues with the windows there that needed emergency replacement. These windows, we decided to go out for bid for the remaining 69 that's in the main part of the building on the first and second floor. And after rebidding it, we found an even better price on the second go-around. So we're very excited to hopefully move forward to not only have a higher level of energy efficiency in our windows by replacing them with very similar specs to what was brought into the back building, except obviously size and scope of the windows. Not only energy efficiencies in the windows in the remainder of the building, but also some safety features such as egress on the first floor to be able to get out. Currently, the windows as they are only have small openings in them, the original windows. So with that, we would like, again, through the sinking fund to purchase those 69 windows to replace the remainder, the balance of the windows in the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7, instruction matters. 7B is the recommended expulsion of one secondary student. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson?
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District expel one Frost Middle School student, grade 8, for various violations of Livonia Public Schools Board of Education policies. For serious violations of Livonia Public Schools Board of Education policies.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mr. Archibald, would you like to address this any further?
Just to say that this recommendation is a result of a disciplinary hearing that was held on September 26th. The recommendation is that of the hearing officer, and the details of the incident have been shared with each of the board members in advance of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the superintendent or board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
The next item that we have is item 8A, under personnel matters, leaves of absence. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Centers?
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the requests for leave of absence as listed below.
Support.
Mi-
No, I'm sorry.
Mickey Higa and Cynthia Miller.
Support now.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Laura. Mr. Winry, would you like to address this item for us?
Yes, thank you. employees in the Livonia Education Association are permitted by collective bargaining agreement to take leave of absence if they meet certain requirements. These employees have met those requirements, have requested those leaves, and we recommend approval of the leaves of absence.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Laura. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is 8B, resignation. That is for board information only. No motion is required. The next item is 8C, sympathy resolution. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached sympathy resolution for the family of Gerald Gray.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. McDonald. We will be hearing from Mr. Winery momentarily. Mrs. Jarvis, would you read the resolution for us, please?
Yes, I will. A sympathy resolution, Gerald Gray. Whereas the Board of Education was saddened to hear of the untimely death of Gerald Gray, and whereas he was employed by the Livonia Public Schools School District as a custodian at Washington Elementary School, Johnson Elementary School, Rosedale Elementary School, Churchill High School, and Western Wayne Skills Center from October 1987 to November 2016. And whereas he consistently demonstrated his outstanding dedication to students, parents, and staff. And whereas Gerald Gray will be profoundly missed by his colleagues and the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District offers its deepest sympathy to the family and friends of Gerald Gray.
Thank you. Mr. Winery, would you like to address this item?
Thank you, yes. Jerry Gray was an employee of Livonia Public Schools for nearly 20 years. He had hoped to retire in the next year or so, but unfortunately he took quite ill recently and passed away last week. Jerry was known as a very easygoing and well-liked individual by his coworkers, and truly he will be missed. On behalf of administration and the staff here, Jerry's coworkers, I want to express appreciation for Jerry's hard work, his service to the district, and his friendship to all the employees that he knew here for the past near 20 years, and extend our deepest sympathy to his family. With that, we most sincerely recommend approval of the resolution of sympathy.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or other board members? Mrs. Oquist.
I just wanted to comment that I had the privilege of working with Jerry for a number of years. He was our evening custodian when I was at Johnson Elementary, and he was just a bright spot and someone I enjoyed working with very much, cared about the work that he did, and we were lucky to have him as part of our school community, and I certainly echo Mr. Winery's sentiments to share our deepest sympathies with his family and thank them for sharing him with us.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from other board members? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you. And again, our sympathies to the Gray family. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 9, reports from the superintendent. Mrs. Oquist.
Thank you so much, President Burton. We have a number of things, so I'll move through them quickly. I wanted to congratulate our board members on their most recent election. Although there was much talk during this election season about what was at the top of the ticket. As we've talked about, there were local issues on the ballot, specifically our Board of Education election. We had 4 board seats up for a 4-year term. We were fortunate to have 8 community members offer to their service in that role, and we welcome back 2 incumbents, Tammy Bonifield and Dan Centers, and we welcome 2 new faces, Crystal Frank and Karen Bradford, who will officially come on board in January. We have been so fortunate over the years to just have outstanding members of our community give service to our district. We will have 2 of our esteemed board colleagues, Diane Laura and Eileen McDonald, who we will be wishing well. They've chosen to conclude their time on the board, and we will have a well-deserved acknowledgement of their service in December. But congratulations to our 4 elected or re-elected members of the board. It is certainly a tremendous way to serve your school community, and I believe that the statistic I heard is that we have about 1,000 new board members across the state of Michigan as of this election. So, and our team was hard at work. They were at a Board of Education MASB conference this past week and weekend, and that included, I believe, a couple of our new colleagues, and so everyone continues their hard work in that regard, and we are grateful to them. The second piece that was very impactful to us was the Wayne County Educational Enhancement Millage. As our community knows and as our board knows, we have spoken about this for many, many months. We are so grateful to the voters across our Wayne County region and across the Livonia Public Schools' entire community for the support and the investment they have made in the students and in our schools. We will work diligently this spring as part of our budget prioritizing process to talk about how to utilize those funds to best meet the needs of the students and the staff that we serve, that we get resources into our schools and into our classrooms and continue to enhance opportunities for our students. So we are very grateful for that support. Speaking of support for our schools, today our LPS Education Foundation Grant Committee went on the road and delivered 19 grants across our school district at 13 schools totaling $42,000. They brought large checks, which were graciously printed by our friend Steve Ciato, who's a great business leader and community partner to us, that the large check was a big hit with the kids. And that and a letter of award for the grantee recipient were given to each of the staff members. And we just cannot thank the LPS Education Foundation, specifically the grant committee led by Lorna Durand, for this opportunity. This infuses opportunities for kids that range from efforts connected to school improvement at their school in the content areas, but also added this year was an opportunity for staff to connect to the climate and culture work of our district. So our district school improvement team goals, and a number of the grant recipients chose that route as well. And so we will be sharing online. I know Mrs. Jenkins was able to be part of those celebrations, as well as her colleague Fred. And so we will be putting together a summary of those grants and sharing with the community the ways that they are making a difference with our students. So that leads me to my next item, just a quick note to support the foundation, a way we can give back and support the foundation who gives so much to us. Their Mod Pizza is going to be offering an opportunity next week. They've chosen the LPS Education Foundation of all the community organizations in Livonia to be the recipient of their Week of Modness. And it was a way for gratitude with attitude. So for every pizza purchased from next Wednesday through Saturday, so that does include Black Friday, I'd like you to note, $1 for every pizza sold will come back to the foundation. So that is the Mod Pizza location on Middle Belt. All right, we have some kids to celebrate in this district. So we had a great time celebrating some of our staff earlier this evening. So I want to share with you that we had a young man by the name of Michael Bagazinski, 17 years old. He is a senior enrolled in the IB program at Livonia Franklin, earned the rank of Eagle Scout on November 6th. He is part of Boy Scout Troop 271 out of St. Michael Catholic Church in Livonia. Listen to Michael's background. He is the president of the National Honor Society, a member of the National Art Honor Society, 2015 MVP of the Quiz Bowl team, a Patriots Relate volunteer, and a member of the Franklin Interact Club. He participated in Ford Motor Company's high school science and technology program, and he is a 3-year varsity letter winner on Franklin's tennis team and was voted the Best Sportsman Award by his teammates. Michael renovated a community meeting room along with a friend of his who is also part of the Boy Scout Troop 271. They renovated a community meeting room at St. Michael Church to meet the requirements for the Eagle Scout project, put in approximately 200 hours of service, and the rehabilitation of each room included ceiling repairs, carpet removal, and extensive cleaning and painting. So congratulations to Michael. That is quite an accomplishment. I know Franklin is proud to have him there. Congratulations to our Lady Chargers. They are becoming a familiar sight into the playoffs for the volleyball team at Churchill. They will be headed off to the MHSAA state quarterfinals tomorrow night at Gibraltar. They will be playing Bedford, and we are confident they will be victorious and move on, hopefully, to the state semifinals, where they reached that point last year as well. So congratulations to them. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the cast and crew of Kappa. A number of us had the opportunity to see their first performance of the year, the School of Rock. It was engaging, and they are quite a crew. You would have been so proud of them. And if there are a couple other opportunities I wanted to highlight this week, a number of music opportunities. We have a band concert going on at Churchill High School at 7 p.m. on Thursday, and Franklin is having their fall music festival also at that same time on Thursday. So we invite our community to join us for one of those two opportunities at our schools. And speaking of Franklin, I wanted to share with you that the ever-popular Thanksgiving buffet at the Patriot Inn is going to be held this Friday. It's open to the public from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The buffet is $10 a person, and if it is anything like the amazing Oktoberfest buffet that they had, would you join me in supporting that? My cabinet colleagues, we had the opportunity to enjoy Oktoberfest, and it was quite wonderful. I would invite the community, our board, or any of our staff to join our students in the Patriot Inn Culinary Arts Program for their Thanksgiving buffet on Friday. You'll get a little turkey early. And then finally, next Monday, we have been talking quite a bit over the past number of months about an important presentation that will be taking place to the Board of Education and to our community next Monday at the Livonia Career Technical Center, which is located across from Churchill High School. We will be presenting the final summary of the studies done by Plantmer and Cressa related to our enrollment and our facility use, and the work of the 45-person committee led by Mr. Steve Archibald and Dr. Jennifer Terriel will be shared, and recommendations to the Board of Education will be made at that meeting. So that meeting, it starts at 7 o'clock. The meeting will be videotaped, so on Tuesday, the 22nd, the video and the packet will be uploaded on the website for the community to view if they're not able to join us. Then the following week, when we have all this information on our website, and we've also emailed it out to every parent and staff member in our community, we will do so again this week. We will be holding 2 community forums, and the board, I hope I can speak on your behalf, are very desirous of the opportunity to hear from our community on this important issue. So on Tuesday, November 29th and Thursday, December 1st, we will be hosting community forums at 7 p.m. The Tuesday forum will be at Riley. The Thursday forum will be at Frost. That will be an opportunity for the community to come in and to give input, and in a smaller group setting, be able to give feedback to a Board of Education member or district administration member on the recommendations that have been made. Following that, there will be 2 additional board committee meetings, at which time the board will have an opportunity to discuss the presentation, the recommendations, and also the feedback from the community. On December 12th, the board will get a final recommendation on which they will vote on December 19th. So just a reminder that there is an extensive amount of information that we have continuously updated since last spring on our website. We don't want anyone to be without information on this important topic. And so that can be found on the opening page of our website. There's a very large icon with a schoolhouse that has information about the enrollment and facility study and all of the committee meeting packets for each meeting that has taken place since last spring. So again, we invite you to take part in the community forums. All of that information is on the opening page of our website. However, if you have any other questions on that, please do not hesitate to contact us here at the board office, and we would be happy to answer your questions. And that's it. Thank you, President Burton.
Thank you. I would also like to encourage those folks who are present in our schools, whether you are staff, teachers, coaches, parents even, to let the board know when exciting things are going on in your schools. With the number of buildings that we have and 14,000 students, there are a lot of accomplishments that happen, and we don't hear about all of them, but we certainly would love to give a shout out to those of you, such as our Lady Chargers. We know there are a lot of other exciting accomplishments going on out there. So if you do know of accomplishments of the students in your school, please contact the Board of Education and or the Superintendent's office so we can make sure that we can congratulate you publicly on those. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 10, hearing from board members. And item 10A is the rescheduling of a regular board meeting. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. McDonald.
Move that the Board of Education of Livonia Public Schools School District move the currently scheduled December 12th, 2016 regular board meeting to December 19th, 2016.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. McDonald, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mrs. Oquist, would you like to run by this one more time?
Sure, absolutely. So at one of our recent study session meetings, and then I believe also at a committee meeting, we discussed the desire of the board to have additional opportunities. One, to have their own discussion and dialogue about the presentations and recommendations being made from the District Enrollment and Building Use Committee. Additionally, if we were able to move this meeting back to December 19th, it allowed us to add a committee meeting on December 5th, to turn the December 12th meeting into a committee meeting, and then have the final board meeting of the year, the voting meeting, on December 19th. We believe this will allow additional opportunities for the community to communicate with the board, and also importantly for the board to communicate with one another and ask questions of district administration on the recommendations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or comments from the board on this? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. McDonald, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mrs. Bonifield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. McDonald.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield says yes. Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Laura.
Yes.
President Burton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 10B, first reading of board policy EDDB, walkers and riders. We do not have a motion on this item as it is a first reading. We'll be voting on it next week. Mrs. Scott, would you like to address this item for the board at this time, or would you rather just wait till next week?
I can address it right now. That'll
Okay.
be okay. Thank you, Ms. President Burton, and good evening, everyone. I'm bringing to you Board Policy EDDB, which is entitled Student Transportation, Walkers and Riders, and for the first reading following our discussions at both a study session and the Committee of the Whole. In order to clarify the existing board policy as it relates to transportation eligibility, a sentence is being added to the first paragraph, and also in the fifth paragraph, as requested in previous board policies, which we were updating, we are adding the words school district, so it accurately reflects the name of the school district within the policy. And we request the board policy EDDB be put on the voting agenda for the December 19th regular board meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All righty. Again, we'll have that on the voting agenda for December 19th.
President Burton?
Yes, Mrs. Jarvis. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up
That's
there.
okay.
Thank you.
Just one clarification.
Yes.
I wanted to point out to our listeners that this does not represent a change to the policy so much as a clarification.
Thank you. That is very important. Thank you very much. Any other, sorry, I didn't see you down there originally. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, alrighty, we will put that on the agenda for December 19th. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 10C, first reading of board policy EEB, wellness for students. Again, this is a first reading. We are not taking a vote at this time. Mrs. Alice, would you like to address this item?
I would be very happy to. Thank you very much, President Burton, and good evening, everyone. The recommendation of the changes to Board Policy EEB, Wellness for Students, we are making these changes so that our board policy will be in compliant with federal wellness policy regulations as outlined by the USDA Food and Nutrition Service Center recently. The changes that we are recommending were presented to the Board of Education during the October 24th study session and again during the November 7th Committee of the Whole meeting. And so just in general, I will summarize the changes that we are recommending. To the policy, we are recommending that we add 2 new topics, District Wellness Committee and fundraising. And to each of those topics, we are recommending that we include a describing paragraph. We are also making a minor addition to the topic Nutrition Standards. In the 3rd paragraph, we are adding the words "or designee" following the words "the superintendent." So the beginning of that paragraph reads, "the superintendent or designee." We are also recommending that we replace the existing paragraphs that are describing 2 topics. One is physical education and physical activity opportunities, and implementation and measurement. The 2 new paragraphs then allow this policy to be compliant with federal regulations. And another change is to add a 2nd paragraph to the topic, other school-based activities designed to promote student wellness. And finally, we are updating the legal references at the conclusion of the policy. Once again, all of these policy changes allow this policy to comply with the federal wellness policy regulations. And we are recommending that this policy be part of the voting agenda of the December 19th board meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this item? Seeing none, we will place it on the agenda for December 19th for a vote at that time. Thank you, Mrs. Alice. That brings us to item 10D, hearing from board members. As is the practice of this board, rather than hearing from each board member on likely many of the same topics, we ask one of our board members to handle a lot of the thank yous for the board this evening. This evening, Dan Centers is going to be handling that for us, and certainly if other board members would like to add anything afterward, you are most welcome. Mr. Centers.
Thank you. What a cool night. We were able to honor our Teachers of the Year. There's some amazing people, and you can tell they all have their own personalities and styles, and it's just very neat to see them all together in one place and see how dynamic they are. It's American Education Week. It's a great week to reflect on how important it is, as a resolution stated, for our democracy and just the future of our societies. We heard a little bit about the energy efficiencies and comforts that'll be coming to the district with the frost boiler replacement and the windows here in the administration building. I'll be looking forward to walking in here and seeing people without scarves and mittens, and thank you for their patience and working in these conditions for 50 years. These windows are well overdue. Thank you to the community for supporting the Wayne County Enhancement Millage. The adequacy study that was done by the state last year showed that we are pretty drastically underfunded for our schools. This made a dent in that, and we're going to be able to provide some much needed support for our school district. Our schools did a really nice job of running, for opening up the schools for the election. I heard lots of compliments about our buildings, and people got to see some of our renovations up close. I also want to congratulate Tammy and our 2 new board members, Crystal and Karen Bradford. They're going to be very nice additions, I'm sure, to this board. And with that, that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Burton. I just want to make one comment. As the community may or may not know, the Michigan Association of School Board had their annual conference downtown in Detroit, and our board was recognized as having 100% participation, and that included our 2 incoming board members who took the initial class, and so I just want to congratulate our board. I think we're moving towards an honor board, and for the public's edification, that is when all of your school board members are certified by MASB. So I think we're well on our way, and that's a great honor to have. And that's why they call it an honor board. So let's keep going. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members or the superintendent? Mrs. Bonnefield.
One of the events that I was lucky enough to go to in the last month was a Comedy of Errors at Stevenson High School, their fall play. It was great, and I still don't know how the kids memorize all that Shakespeare. It's amazing. I would also like to really reiterate the invitation to the community to come to our community forums regarding the district study on, and make sure you come. Please, we invite you to the forums, not as a formality, but because we honestly care about what the community says. We listen, we talk about it, and we take that information back. Please come to the forums. This is your time to speak honestly and clearly about how you feel, to gather information, and to really feel like you are being a part of the process. So please make sure that if you have any interest in the study, that you do come to the forums and give us your information, and we will take it back. We will discuss it, and we do appreciate everybody that comes out. And the last community forums that we had, we talk about the funding and how we budget. We do talk often about how the community voice their opinions, and we do base a lot of our decisions on that feedback and that information. So please be a part of the process. This is your time to speak and your time to be a part of the process and really make sure that the community has their voice in this process.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to share anything? Just as a little piggyback on what Mrs. Oquist and Mrs. Bonnefield have both talked about, we do, of course, have an opportunity at audience communications each meeting to hear from the public. However, that is very limited. That's a 3-minute time slot. The community forums are designed to be about an hour to an hour and a half long. There's some significant time to sit down with board members and administrators and really have some deep discussion. I think the folks who have opinions on the building utilization and enrollment study would greatly benefit by, as has been said, by attending the community forums, much more so than audience communications, because that is just a huge chunk of time designed to sit down and really discuss in detail what thoughts are back and forth. So again, I cannot echo any more strongly what's already been said. Please do, if you're contemplating sharing your thoughts in one venue or another, it is much more beneficial to do it at the community forums because we have a much larger set of time, or chunk of time, and some time to sit down and have some good dialogue. So make every attempt to do so. Any other questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? We have come to the end of our agenda. We are now adjourned. I wish you a nice week. Thank you. Good night.